Hi everyone, thanks for letting me speak today. It's nice to be able to speak to people that aren't on the other side of a screen, which is refreshing in these current circumstances. Slight change of plan today. It was meant to be a co-presenting with my product marketing colleague from Sage, but unfortunately he's unable to attend today, so I'm going to have to do it on my own. But hopefully we can push through and you'll be able to get the gist of what we're trying to get across as a part of this presentation. So excited to share with you guys about, where's my clicker? The link that we have between product management and product marketing and the benefits that we have around how we've created an interlock with those functions within Sage. So when it comes to this, I've presented this in the product marketing summit earlier. So if you have any colleagues over there and you bring forward some of the ideas that I've spoken to today, they should be aware of what you're talking about and not look at you with a blank expression where you want to try and introduce some new ways of working. So today, what I'm going to cover off is a bit of an introduction of myself, and then I'm going to go into sort of like the interlock between product management and product marketing management, what makes a good PM or PMM, the org structure that we currently have at Sage and the impact on that relationships with that organization structure, how we can supercharge collaboration, and ways of working for success. And at the end, I hope we have a bit of time for a Q&A so I can answer any questions that you might have. So, a bit of an introduction to myself. So, as you can hear, I'm Australian. It's very common in London, but where I live up in the north of England, it's quite uncommon actually. I think there's only one Australian in my town. So sometimes people look at me with a blank expression, not understanding what I'm saying. I've been over here for coming on 13 years now. Previously, I've worked in quite large organisations such as Boeing and Bechtel and Santander, mainly in functions around program delivery and change management. But recently, I've branched into product management in more recent roles, especially at Caspian, which was a small startup in the north of England that have now been acquired by NASDAQ, and they were an AI company doing financial services AI. And now recently at Sage, in my current role, in my global position as product management director for one of our segments around cloud native development and products. I have done an MBA at QUT, so I like to think I have some ideas that I can bring to the table. But yeah, that's a bit about me. So how and why do you want to improve that interlock between the two functions? I suppose if I can sum it up, and when we was talking to Eric, my counterpart, what was the way we could sum this up? And it's one way really is it's going to make your job easier. In our experience over the past few years, having that tighter interlock between the two functions has meant we're more effective in our roles, and we have produced better outcomes by doing so. By improving that interlock between the two functions, it's easier to do your job, and information flows a lot easier between the two of you. You're better able to support each other's work as well and have an understanding around the challenges that you're both meeting. You don't miss things, so having that tighter interlock, we can divide and conquer on certain meetings, so when I'm not able to cover off on the PM function, he can step into that role for me on meetings. We're all busy these days. Most often we've got duplicate meetings at the same time slot. Trying to meet every requirement of an organisation is difficult, and having someone there you can rely on who can be by your side and take that slack off you, and you'll be able to take the slack off them is quite refreshing and quite good. Equally important with that tight interlock, we've been able to have, it's been more interesting as a role. We're having a lot more fun, especially in these days where we have to sit in an office at home usually, and not being able to have that interaction personally in an actual work office is sort of been challenging for a lot of people with COVID, around the COVID. So having this approach has enabled us to have a bit more fun and making it a bit more interesting around our roles. Ultimately, you have the same goal. So working on the same products in the two functions, you ultimately have the same goal, which is success of that product in market. And interlocking on those two functions together enables you to work on that same goal, speak the same, I suppose, messages or have the same approach to how you want to deliver that strategy for the organisation around product into market, and you're more effective. So some questions I would encourage you to consider are, how good is a working relationship you have with your product counterpart today? What's preventing you from having a tighter interlock? How might each of you score health and effectiveness of your working relationship to date? I'm lucky in the sense that my counterpart, I have a friendship with him as well. So it's not just in a working, we're friends outside of work. That has come through working together, not previously prior to moving into Sage. So if you have someone who is maybe opposite you that you think is not as easy as a person that you might be able to get along with, still try it, because by endeavouring on this approach around interlocking and having close contact with your counterpart in PMM, you're able to bring down those barriers and hopefully improve that relationship together. So, on this picture here, you'll see that the traditional view of what the roles are within an organisation, PMM and PM roles. What we've found is, PMs and PMMs tend to stay in their own silo or swim lane. They'll not want to go outside of that and have a very myopic view on what their role is within the organisation. As you can see in this sort of example, there's many tasks that are distinctively in one domain and aren't in either role, with very little overlap, mainly around customer journey and competitive analysis comes into it from an overlap point of view. The implication of this is that you can have PMs and PMMs who just know their domain areas and have less awareness of the impact that these have on other areas within the organisation. How we've approached is one whereby, although the skills do differ between the two roles, we think there should be more of an overlap on what we collaborate on. And you can see that, I think, in that picture there, in order to get those results that you need. Having this overlap has given us the ability to have cross-functional insight to better serve our stakeholders and deliver better quality outcomes. This collaboration enables us to enhance each other's work. It provides other insights that we might not have thought of previously, and challenge some of our assumptions that we would have had. And that's open challenging is one of the sort of core areas of what we think there's no right or wrong challenge when it comes to our conversation. You can see in there what sits in the middle mainly is around those areas. I'm just trying to enlarge it here. Can you see here? There's two areas that you might not be able to see there. It's pricing and tech innovation, and they straddle the outer. What we thought on these two areas, because although we don't share the responsibility, we still have an impact or a sort of like an informed discussion around those two areas in particular. Innovation, tech innovation is one that sits within my role because of the product that we sell on market, which has been ERP software. So my investigation and knowledge sharing around, infrastructure, tech stacks, etc., is not something that Eric wants to go into deep, but I try to give him the footnotes on what are the most relevant points to bring into it when we're looking around messaging and the product management function. On the same side, pricing is also an area that Eric gets more deep into it than I do, but it has a relevance to have an understanding, especially when you're looking around a cost to serve on technology elements around how we're pricing the products to market and making sure we're having consistent margins for the organisation. So within Sage, we're lucky right now in that the current organisation structure has us sitting in a global organisation group. So both the functions of product marketing and product management sit under one area, and we have the same boss. So that's handy because it enables us to execute against the same goals and objectives that we have as an organisation. We're currently going through a bit of a change within the organisation. We tend to do this every 4 years. So we're now looking to split the marketing and the management areas into two separate organisation structures. But we're not overly concerned about that because the interlock that we've had as a function to date enables us to mean that once we split in that structure, we're still going to have that close interaction with each other. The ways of working will still maintain, and we'll still be able to have the same effectiveness as product management and product managers within the organisation. So how do we do this collaboration? How do we supercharge it? We go in the approach of a shared brain. Teams is critical for us currently as we work remotely. So as I said, I'm up in the north of England, he's down in Exeter. We have offices in between, but we rarely go into that because we deal with other regional teams around Europe. So we don't have an office per se, except to our own home office. So Teams is absolutely vital for us around working remotely. We talk every day on Teams. We start off our day every day in Teams, and we actually talk multiple times throughout the day. Actually, I think I talk to Eric more than anyone I speak to, even my own partner. We don't store things on local computers, so we make sure that everything is stored into SharePoint and to avoid confusion and any sort of version control. It's all about optimizing that access and that collaboration on the things that we produce. We also share all our notes on OneNote, so any meeting that we go to, we will actually jot down all notes, any sort of actions or points of note to be brought to attention of each other, have them in a central location so that we can refer to those notes if we're unable to make the meeting ourselves. Everything is open and accessible to our entire team, so it's not only Eric, but it's also my boss and the other team members that we have in North America can see all this information as well. We both wondered what it would have been like if we'd worked in the same office and if this approach would still be valid, and we feel that it would be. But definitely utilising this shared sort of functionality through Microsoft has enabled us to have a more effective outcome within the organisation. One of the things that I brought into when I started my role was traditionally working in software projects was around daily stand-up scrums. Now in development that's a standard approach, but in product marketing and product management it's not so much. So we decided to bring in these daily startups that we have. Every morning at 8:30 we jump on a call and we set out our day objectives, we set out what meetings we're going into, we have an understanding around where we need to divide and conquer in certain areas, we have an understanding of how we're going to present our view into other stakeholder groups within the organisation in these meetings. So this half hour every morning is vital to enable this collaboration and this interlock going forward. In addition to this daily collaboration, we absolutely always and frequently use workshop and working sessions to approach our deliverables and where we tag different things we need to create. When it comes to work we produce, we're not driven by our egos, so it's not by me, it's not by my counterpart, it's usually just by us as a combined effort going forward. So there's no ego brought into the work and there's no credit on one particular person. These ways of working have had many positive outcomes, including high levels of engagement and motivation from each of us. And making remote work easy through the pandemic has definitely been one of the benefits, helping us become more accountable on our deliverables as well, and making us more efficient. Daily stand-ups are standard, like I said, in devs and Scrum teams. And we really thought that we wanted to leverage this sort of approach in our PM and PMM teams, and it helps generate new ideas. And even so much so, we're going to look to try and roll this out across multiple PM teams and PMM teams throughout our organisation as a new way of working at Sage. Ultimately, it's more about making time for fun. So I started a few months before the pandemic. So I have only met my colleague twice in person. When I've had the opportunity, I've gone on holiday and I've gone to meet him in person to have some sort of social interaction outside of a monitor. But what we've done is we've created a virtual, I suppose, water cooler or a virtual pub on a Friday afternoon where we'll actually set out a time as well where it's not about work, it's not about meetings, it's about enjoying each other's company, having a beer on the screen and actually just talking about common interests that we have, such as things as cryptocurrencies or family matters or relationship issues, the normal things that you would have when you're talking down the pub with your mates. We appreciate that life gets in the way and families and commitments get in the way, so this approach enables us to take pressure off each other's shoulders and step in when required and back the other person up. When we go into work, we don't have a work persona as such or a personal persona, it's just us as a person and show up as we really are, which makes things more relaxed and a lot more fun. And things may not work for everyone, and this approach may not work for everyone. And if you find that you have someone who's maybe of a different personality to you is in the opposing function in product marketing, I suggest even trying some of these opportunities might help to bring down those barriers, increase the ability for you to work more effectively, increase the relationship building within your organisation, ultimately make you more fulfilled in your role and have better output going forward. So that's I'm at the end of my presentation, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer any today. If not, I'm really happy to present to you in front today, and I hope there's been some value from what I've presented to you today.
Thank you. There are a couple of questions from Slido. I'm going to start reading, but if you guys have any questions, please raise your hand. What is the ratio of PMs to PMMs at Sage? Do you think that ratio is balanced?
That's a tricky question in the sense that we're going through a reorganisation right now, so there's been quite a few redundancies within the organisation or reorganisation of how we're approaching the two functions. We're close to a one-to-one relationship in most circumstances, so within my team, there's 3 PMs and there's 3 PMMs. So, and we all have our own segment within the organisation that we deal with, or product stack within the organisation. So it's almost like a 50-50, but that is potentially changing going forward.
Thank you. Do all PMs need a PMM, or is that specific for Sage?
I think that the answer to this one depends on the PM, and I would say that there's definitely elements to the PMM role that I don't have a strength in, that I know that I rely on my counterpart to help me with, or to rely on his output and his work on being able to deliver our objectives within our organisation. There are potentially those PMs out there who, if you're a small organisation, yes, you have to wear both caps. But if you do have the ability to interlock with a PMM within your organisation, absolutely would advise doing that, because they have different perspective, they bring a different flavour to what you may think has been challenges in the market. They're able to put in a different view of maybe what you're trying to achieve, and ultimately that difference will generate a better outcome and a better delivery on that objective in the long run.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. What specifically do you do differently as a result of this close relationship, and vice versa? Any tangible results you can share?
So specifically different is, I suppose, the way that we worked is we're not siloed. So like I said before in my presentation, we present not from a product management point of view or a product marketing point of view, but from both. There's no one view or one particular flavour to the output that we give as going forward. So that's a new approach for us, and that it brings that relaxed approach, means that you're not worried about your ego and making sure that you make the right impression. You're making sure that the output of what you're doing is in the best possible way and gives exactly what it should do for the business. Even if you may disagree on certain things, presenting that view enables decision-making process at a higher level in the organisation, more informed, and making sure that the decision being made is correct. What was the rest of the question, I think? And what is the tangible outputs?
Tangible, example.
Well, we have, from a transition of our organisation, we're moving into, we have been and we are moving more into more cloud-native managed services. So we've had, under our belt of our roles, we've been launching a new program globally. So we've launched that into 4 countries. And we've taken this approach not only within our team, but into the regional teams that we work with as well. So we're taking into the fact that we collaborate on that shared brain. We have these interlock sessions, maybe not every day, but a few days a week. And we've been able to successfully deliver this program into now 4 regions globally. So yeah, there's been some really good positive output from this new approach.
And do you guys share the same kind of goals, metrics, and OKRs?
Yes, so every year we set the same goals. So within my team, within Sage, there's quite a few teams within Sage. It's a large organisation. But like I said, we have the same goals and objectives because we report into the same boss who covers both functions. Moving forward, that may change, but ultimately we will operate as a strategic sort of function within our organisation. So we have the same overarching goal, which is cloud native revenue, delivery of certain products and certain projects within the market of that year. So yeah, a tendency is that we have the same goals and objectives.
Okay. How would you establish a relationship from scratch with marketing?
Well, I think the first way is just saying hello and just starting the conversation. It's as simple as that. Broach the idea of having a daily stand-up with them to have an understanding of what they're trying to achieve for the day, and they have an understanding what you're trying to achieve for the day. If you can't do it every day, maybe twice a week, top and tail of the week, but it's all about taking that first step and putting the idea out there to your counterpart and seeing if they take it up. They may not, but I think anything you can do to encourage it will ultimately have benefit for the organisation.
You mentioned that yourself and your PMM report into the same boss. Mm-hmm. Does this help or more, or do you think that having two different bosses will be a bit of a struggle?
I think it definitely helps because we're all trying to, I suppose, achieve the same end goal. Within large organisations, there is the political element that comes into it around specific agendas for certain functions within the organisation and operating in different ways. So having the same boss absolutely helps. But now that we're moving into a structure whereby potentially we'll have two different reporting lines, direct reporting lines within the organisation, I think we're in a better position in that circumstance by having this as a way of working previously than if we hadn't had that and now we're reporting into different bosses. So it will definitely enhances the opportunity there.
Also because you know each other, so you already have that relationship.
Yeah.
Perfect. I've got very very specific question. What happens if you have a shared product marketing function? So you have a PMM who is split over a number of PMs and it can't be embedded into your Scrum.
What happens if you have a PMM who
is
has
shared between multiple
PMs? Yeah. I suppose it's around time allocation. I understand where you're coming from. It's trying to get their attention onto your specific product deliverable. If they have multiple different objectives that they have to achieve, it's going to be difficult. I suppose the only way to overcome that is to show the value. So one of the questions I had next door was, how do I make product managers see the value of product marketing? There seems to be a perception that we, as product management, don't see the value in that function, and we don't hold it as a high enough regard and value. And once you start to engage closer with your counterparts on these functions, you start to learn that value and understand it's not so much the functional value, but the value of the person as well, and that value of that relationship. And by creating that relationship, it opens new opportunities and new discussion points and new ways of thinking and new ways of working that you may not have done if you were working in isolation. So I would say start by trying this process with them. Hopefully they see the value in it, and then by seeing the value in and the growth of your relationship, you'll get more lion's share of their attention going forward.
Okay. We've got a question from Callum. When do you know that you need product marketing function in your team or organization?
That's a tricky question. I suppose it's when, historically, as product management, we deal with leading, obviously, on how we deliver in market, competitive analysis, etc., and understand how we're going to position what we're developing as a roadmap for that product going forward. Some don't have that specific soft skill of the marketing side of things, so the copywriting or the messaging, etc. I suppose it's when you start to see, looking out into the market and how your brand is landing on launch and seeing the effectiveness of that messaging sort of approach that you have. And maybe if it's not having the effect that you want, that's a trigger point to understand maybe you need a dedicated function that starts to actually address this rather than it being one of the sub areas that you cover off as a product manager.
Are the feedback that the marketing team different from the feedback that you are getting from the customers that are using the product, or the two feedbacks match together from the customer perspective?
It's not often the case that they're usually the same. We are very much at Sage of a customer first, so the focus always around feedback for us, although it's important to have the voice internally, is how is the customer perceiving this as our product and market, understanding where it's hitting the demographics that we're targeting correctly, getting the feedback on the approach on the campaigns, etc. It's as a focus going forward is always customer first for us on Sage. So there is an internal mechanism around how we deliver go-to-markets, etc. for certain products, but the ultimate goal and the ultimate metric is that customer satisfaction.
Happy.
Yeah.
Cool. Any challenges you see with this relationship in more and customer-focused products? Example, no SaaS or B2B products.
I don't think it's no. I would say no. I think this approach can be taken in any sort of organisation that, irrelevant of what the product is. This is more of an internal people process way of working and developing increased ability for that interlock between functions within an organisation. So I don't think this is exclusively for B2B or tech stack organisations. I think this can be applied across any sort of product management function within any size of business, particularly because it doesn't necessarily need to be PMMs. It could be another function within the organisation that you have that you can create and provide this approach with as well. So product development, or it could be even sales organisations, customer services. These interlocks and this closer relationship on how you deliver is definitely will add benefit.
Thank you. One last question. What is a story of success that working with a PMM enabled you to achieve that success that without you wouldn't have achieved otherwise?
I think COVID created, for us as an organisation, and probably very common across most organisations, quite a shift in how our strategic approach was. When I joined, COVID hit 2 weeks later, I think. So we had a strategic vision for our product stack going forward. We had to quickly pivot our strategy and create a whole new program and function, program product within market. And this collaboration, I think the success it gave or enabled was the pace that we had to work at. And because the landscape was changing every day, our ability to interlock every day in the morning, understand what the day challenges were going to be, what the meetings we were going into were, what was our one view on what we're trying to achieve in those calls, enabled us to meet that pace and achieve what we need to do around the delivery of the project and program. And because we're global, we're talking about programs that were in North America, so dealing with North American colleagues who are a different time zone. Having family, which we both do, were enabling us to do meetings in North American time zones. That wasn't all on one person's shoulder. So yeah, definitely that helped us.
That helped a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, James, thank you very much for presenting today.
Great, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.